this was a series that I've been looking forward to reading. I've enjoyed some of the books from the Energon verse, but this one just did not hit the way that I was hoping. This is Volume 1 Special Missions of the Scarlett comic book. This collects, I believe, does it tell you Scarlett's issues 1 through 5? And I have a bone to pick with it. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and dive into the book. This is Kelly Thompson, writer, Marco Ferrari, artist, Lee Loughridge doing the colors, Rus Wooton doing the lettering, and there's everyone else working on the book. And a special shout out to my local library for having this in stock so I could check it out and read it. Now, this opens as a G.I. Joe book. Should. Though, again, one thing that I will say in terms of what's the word I'm looking for? Panel decisions. It does feel like I'm reading a Netflix comics. We get our wide angle shot, kind of going closer, as we see something bubbling out of the lakes, and then Monaco. And we see that Scarlett poking out of the water. And it's just something that you would see in a movie. And it's like, we don't need story panels. We need comic panels, my friends. That's just my personal feelings on the whole matter. But we see her coming out of the water, ripping off her scuba gear, and dressing into this body tight, dress. Now, what kills me on this book is the artwork. It's not horrible. I've seen some bad art, but to me, this looks like not a web comic, borderline web comic, kind of like new breaking into comics. And I feel like if you're going to do something that's been around for 20 something years, you're not going to put an indie artist on a big book like that. I would rather see someone that has worked on it before or kind of has some working knowledge of G.I. Joe, because to me, that just doesn't look like Scarlett. That looks like a librarian or maybe a generic version of Barbara Gordon. Whenever we see Scarlett, she always looks in charge. Like, she always has this confidence about her. And it's there, but it just doesn't look like her. I don't know. It's just the artwork to me is just so off. The characters look so generic. And that's what kills me the most. Because don't get me wrong, I love Kelly Thompson's work. I've read a lot of their comics, but I love how she pulls up her purse, Scarlett in position, copy that agent. So she's going through, and this is like a human trafficking thing for all the elites. And they're saying that you cannot engage. You're there to gather evidence and confirm buyers, if possible, investigation, not engagement. However, things start to happen, and we're introduced. Tell me if I'm wrong, but in all the years of different G.I. Joe comics I've read, plus the cartoon, I've never heard of a character named Jinx. So I think she is relatively new to the universe. But we see this kind of, Control, I recognize this symbol, but I can't place it. Received. We come to find out that this character's name is Jinx. And see this, it doesn't look bad, but it just looks off to me. Everything about the artwork just screams something's off. And again, it just has that indie generic look. Before we go any further, let me kind of see what I'm talking about. So here, Scarlett to me looks like a new girl out of high school or college, ready for her next day with the government. Whee! As where, let's go back to, probably was this 1987? Let's make sure. 1985. And just look at how more, I guess, in depth comparing the two. Look at how Destro and Storm Shadow look. Speaking of Storm Shadow, that's supposed to be Storm Shadow. Hold on. I wanted to go through the story arc, but the artwork is just irking my girt too much to not talk about it now. There's a particular panel. We will be going over this book eventually, but patience, my friends, patience. There's a perfect, juxtaposition of Storm Shadow that I want. Okay, here. Has the right musculature, has that old school how to draw the Marvel way feeling. This, again, looks like someone that's just starting out and really starting to get the idea, but here this looks like someone that took the idea, had anatomy classes, and knew how to make someone look crawling, instead of looking like at a 3D model or Googling samurai drawing sword. It just looks so damn stock compared to what us old farts grew up with. Because here, this was before digital art. 87, Photoshop wasn't really on the scene quite yet for general use. And so you had to kind of work at it, and it just shows. And that's why these older comics hold up test of time. And so, with that said, now that I can kind of get that off my chest, let's get back into the story. That's why Jinx here, if she is, and I'm not 100% sure, supposed to be a new character, I just wish she looked more femme fatale. Like, instead of having her being, what's the word I'm looking for? Over encumbered with so many panels, and then just this Vince Quilletta-esque background, full splash page, kind of like a Joker, Harley Quinn, Alex Ross spotlight, something to show that she is a force to be reckoned with. Because at this point, we don't know if she's friend or foe, because she's the one that starts the whole ruckus, trying to fleeing with all of these girls that are being sold on the black market. And Jinx, and Scarlett, of course, engages. Now she realizes why she's seen that symbol before. Because, spoilers, if you haven't read this yet and you want to, pause this review, go read the individual floppies or the collected trade, and come back. And you're back. You come to find out that Scarlett and Jinx both were kind of working for G.I. Joe, essentially, or the government at this point. And she ended up in deep cover for Clan Arashikage, which, for longtime G.I. Joe readers, should know what that is. And because she engaged when she saw Jinx, you caused an international incident that will take weeks to clean up. Is there anything you want to offer in your defense? No, sir. No, sir, what? I can always hear the butt with you, O'Hara. What smart-ass thing do you have to say today, soldier? I suppose I would ask how the victims and their families would feel about being home, instead of us coming home with intel on where they are going to be, sir. So this outfit isn't good enough for you. Am I picking up what you're putting down? No, sir, but I admit I'd like to be more proactive. Well, you can be proactive right out of my unit. So she gets kicked out for what she did. And then again, look at this. Look at this face. It looks like Charlie Brown. It looks like Charlie Brown. Now, at least they're using angles instead of everything being flat on like everything else. Like, this angle and this angle should be in line with stuff like this, where she comes home and she's like, Jinx would have broken this tape. So she realizes someone's been in her home. And she is confronted by Stalker. I was like, what the hell is his name? And he basically recruits her into G.I. Joe, saying that there's something that a clan Arashikage is brewing, and that Jinx is deep within deep cover, essentially. And there's supposed to be like this major weapon that they're going to be honing. So nobody will talk to you about Jinx because she went missing while trying to infiltrate Clan Arashikage. Rising power in the global arms race, but it's time to make our move. So she's dropped off, and she infiltrates and does her best. Now the artwork, at least there's action. I hate when it's just like a lot of standing around and talking, but again, just very generic panels. I would have, again, let's go back to what we are all accustomed to reading G.I. Joe. We're just used to more solid paneling and action. And this just doesn't have that. It just looks like something I would read, like introducing this brand new artist with their quirky, speaking of which, quirky, that's another thing. As much as I enjoy Kelly Thompson, they do a lot of flashbacks to Jinx and Scarlett. And they kind of made up their own language or sign language so that they could speak to each other when they're in trouble. And so, like, how about this? Not two or peace, maybe bunny rabbit. Not sure how often you need to talk about bunny rabbits in our business. I still have to make the joke. Fair. Give me a sec. Wait, I got it. Look. Yes. Do you think it's too obvious? Only to us as intended. And then, like, yeah, let's go have an off day with Netflix and ice cream. And I'm like, it just makes your eyes roll in the back of your head and go, oh, why? This isn't a TV show that doesn't need to be quirky humor. This is G.I. Joe. So at least it's offset by, in terms of storytelling, the way that at least Kelly Thompson's at least trying to tell the artist to portray is, we're seeing what the two friends are supposed to be compared to what her life is right now. So that I'm enjoying. That's where I really couldn't put it down. but I had to stop a lot of the times because this artwork just did not catch me the way that I wanted. Especially here, this to me, I would have loved to see more of an art style on, let's say, old school Frank Miller in the volume 1 of Wolverine when he was taking on the Hand. Something of that art caliber. This isn't bad, but again, just not G.I. Joe. So she puts herself at the hands of the what's his name? The Hard Leader, I think's his name, saying that he wants to be a part of them if he sees that she is fit. To which Storm Shadow knocks her out. She goes, well, at least I made an impression. And then she goes, oh, so torture, they didn't kill me. So at least here we can see how much of a badass she is and how she can rescue herself. Again, kind of generic action. But it's enough to impress the Hard Leader as well as Storm Shadow. They said the way that you can really make your impression on us if you can get this weapon away from our adversaries. Your skills are undeniable. You're an exceptional woman. But becoming Arashikage is hardly so simple a thing. And we value loyalty, honor, sacrifice. These things you have not only failed to exhibit, but in fact shown that you may lack these qualities entirely. So is there any way I may show that I have these skills? I believe so. An ancient weapon of unusual origin. Some have called it the soul of the Arashikage. We work tirelessly on its return. So she eventually she has to infiltrate these 3 towers. And here, it just looks so frumpy. Like, it just looks like something you trace over a 3D model or something instead of having umption of something like hand-drawn artwork with that pulp fiction-y style on it. But she says, expendable enough that not returning from the suicide mission is palatable. But what she says, judged competent enough to succeed the suicide mission. And the idea that she has to just fling down these towers to get to the heart of these buildings is entertaining, and they really put Scarlett through the ringer. I mean, she gets stabbed, sliced, shot at, and she's exhausted. Now, this isn't too bad. This kind of reminds me of, what's that movie? Old Boy? Where I haven't seen the original, but the remake with Josh Brolin, where they're doing that long take down the parking structure, and he's just ripping through people. That's what this kind of reminds me of. And there's a lot of that motif in this book, and it shows how cunning Scarlett is as well. But as we come to the end of the book, she finally gets a moment to talk to Jinx, because at this point she's saying, I need to ignore her, or else it's going to blow both of our covers. It's going to kill her. And so they're able to use that made up language to speak to each other, saying, God, I've missed you. I'm glad that you're okay. And Jinx is saying, I can't go back with you. I have to see it through, because if this weapon is what it says it is, it's going to get in the hands of another major power that's coming up called Cobra. So at this point, Storm Shadow's not part of Cobra, and Scarlett doesn't know what it is. And when they reunite, you see friends that really care for one another, and they go through hell. But here, again, that panel that we just saw with Storm Shadow crawling in the old comic, it just looks so... like, it looks like someone just Googled rock climber and just sketched it, instead of taking their time to actually try to make something more dynamic, like a Dutch angle looking up and her crawling down like a spider or something like that. Would have been cool. But anyway, we find out that the ultimate weapon is essentially a very, very interesting looking katana. Storm Shadow says that I've been working my whole life like this sword has been looking for me since I was born. It was destined to be in Clan Arashikage. And then we get maybe 1 or 2 moments of Cobra Commander, which again, this should have been a splash page instead of everything mucking it up. Because it just feels like you don't get the whole gravitas of Cobra Commander in this panel. So we haven't found a new one. Or the weapon, sir. I thought you were going to wait until the room was secured. Yes, but I no wish to wait forever. So it seems I'll have to do it myself. And that's basically all you get with Cobra Commander, which is kind of heartbreaking. You'd want to see more, in my personal opinion. But as the book ends, everything's kind of left open-ended. Scarlett realizes that Jinx is not going to come back with her to the States, so she says that she has to stay in deep cover with her because she does not want to leave her on her own, as much as she knows it's dangerous for both of them to be in this mess. But they see what the soul sword is. Let me see if I can find a good photo of it without giving too much away. Because if I remember, I don't want to spoil too much, but this is called the Energon Verse, and I just want you to keep that in mind as I try to find a good example of what I'm looking for here. Take a look at the katana and how powerful it is. And again, this should have been more dynamic. This should have been more like a manga type thing, or just kind of a slink, slink. That would have been such a great paneling choice instead of blub, 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 blub. But this, where Storm Shadow's looking through the gutted guts of his opponent, is kind of cool. It's something I would do for action figure photography, but I would have made him look. This sword has been making its way to my hand since I was born. And you are but our first tribute to the sword of life's greatness. So again, Kelly Thompson has some great dialogue in this story. The paneling choices just feel stock. Same with the art. That's my personal opinion. What do y'all think? Are you enjoying the Energon Universe? We've gone over a few of them, so I'll make sure I leave cards here throughout the review. If you have enjoyed what you've seen, please first and foremost support your local comic shop or wherever it is like to get your action figures and comics and pick up the series, either in the floppies or the collected, or if you're like me and you're kind of low on space, check out your local library. They always have cool graphic novels and collected trades. If you've enjoyed this review, really would appreciate if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel more than you could possibly know. And if you don't mind hitting that fancy little Energon bell, next subscribe. That way I get to upload content. You guys get notified. Come to the channel. And I love talking with you and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments or the socials, which I'll make sure that the links down in the description. So with all that said, hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, everyone.